Aren't there going to be lots of new jobs created though? Because when we think about the other revolutions over time, whether it was the Industrial Revolution or other sort of big technological revolutions,
Yeah.
in the moment we forecasted that everyone was going to lose their jobs, but we couldn't see all the new jobs that were being created.
Because the machines replaced the human strength at a point in time, and very few places in the West today will have a worker carry things on their back and carry it upstairs. The machine does that work, correct?
Yeah.
Similarly, AI is going to replace the brain of a human. And when the West, in its interesting virtual colonies, that I call it, basically outsourced all labor to the developing nations, what the West publicly said at the time is, we're going to be a services economy. We're not interested in making things and stitching things and so. Let the Indians and Chinese and Bengalis and Vietnamese do that. We're going to do more refined jobs, knowledge workers, we're going to call them. Knowledge workers are people who work with information and click on a keyboard and move a mouse and sit in meetings. And all we produce in the Western societies is what? Blah, 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 words. Right? Or designs maybe sometimes, but everything we produce can be produced by an AI. So if I give you an AI tomorrow, where I give you a piece of land, I give the AI a piece of land and I say, here are the parameters of my land, here is its location on Google Maps. Design an architecturally sound villa for me. I care about a lot of light and I need 3 bedrooms. I want my bathrooms to be in white marble, whatever. And the AI produces it like that. How often will you go to an architect and say, right? So what will the architect do? The best of the architects will either use AI to produce that, or you will consult with them and say, hey, I've seen this, and they'll say, it's really pretty, but it wouldn't feel right for the person that you are. Yeah, those jobs will remain, but how many of them will remain? How often do you think, how many more years do you think I will be able to create a book that is smarter than AI? Not many. I will still be able to connect to a human. You're not going to hug an AI when you meet them like you hug me, right? But that's not enough of a job. So why do I say that? Remember, I asked you at the beginning of the podcast to remind me of solutions. Why do I say that? Because there are ideological shifts and concrete actions that need to be taken by governments today. Rather than waiting until COVID is already everywhere and then locking everyone down, governments could have reacted before the first patient, or at least at patient 0, or at least at patient 50. They didn't. What I'm trying to say is there is no doubt that lots of jobs will be lost. There is no doubt that there will be sectors of society where 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of all developers, all software, all graphic designers, all online marketers, all assistances are going to be out of a job. So are we prepared as a society to do that? Can we tell our governments there is an ideological shift? This is very close to socialism and communism. Okay, and are we ready from a budget point of view, instead of spending $1 trillion a year on arms and explosives and autonomous weapons that will oppress people because we can't feed them? Can we please shift that? I did those numbers. Again, I go back to military spending because it's all around us. $2.71 trillion. 2.4 to 2.7 is the estimate of 2024.
How much money we're spending on military?
On military equipment, on things that we're going to explode into smoke and death. Extreme poverty worldwide. Extreme poverty is people that are below the poverty line. Extreme poverty everywhere in the world could end for 10 to 12% of that budget. So if we replace our military spending, 10% of that, to go to people who are in extreme poverty, nobody will be poor in the world. Okay, you can end world hunger for less than 4%. Nobody would be hungry in the world. If you take again 10 to 12% universal healthcare, every human being on the planet would have free healthcare for 10 to 12% on what we're spending on war. Now, why do I say this when we're talking about AI? Because that's a simple decision. If we stop fighting, because money itself does not have the same meaning anymore, because the economics of money is going to change, because the entire meaning of capitalism is ending, because there is no more need for labor arbitrage because AI is doing everything. Just with the $2.4 trillion we save in explosives every year, in arms and weapons, just for that, universal health care, end extreme poverty, you could actually, one of the calculations is you could end or combat climate change meaningfully for 100% of the military budget.
But I'm not even sure it's really about the money. I think money is a measurement stick of power, right?
Exactly. It's printed on demand.
So even in a world where we have superintelligence and money is no longer a problem,
correct,
I still think power is going to be insatiable for so many people. So there'll still be war because,
there will be more war in my view.
I want the strongest AI. I don't want my...
And I don't want, what Henry Kissinger called them? The eaters.
The eaters?
Yeah. Brutal as that sounds.
What, is that the people at the bottom of the socioeconomic...
That don't produce but consume. So if you had a Henry Kissinger at the helm, and we have so many of them, what would they think?
Like, I don't even know who that is.
Why very prominent military figure in the US history. Why would we feed 350 million Americans, America will think. But more interestingly, why do we even care about Bangladesh anymore? If we can't make our textiles there, or we don't want to make our textile there.
I imagine throughout human history, if we had podcasts, conversations would have been warning of a dystopia around the corner. When they heard 100%. Of technology and the internet, they would have said, oh, 100%. We're finished. And when the tractor came along, they would have said, oh God, we're finished because we're not going to be able to farm anymore. So is this not just another one of those moments where we couldn't see around the corner, so we forecasted unfortunate things?
You could be. I'm begging that I'm wrong. Okay? I'm just asking if there are scenarios that you think that can provide that. Mustafa Suleyman you hosted him here.
I did, yeah. He was on the show.
The Coming Wave.
Yeah.
And he speaks about pessimism aversion. Okay? That all of us, people who are supposed to be in technology and business and so on, we're always supposed to, stand on stage and say, the future's going to be amazing. Yeah. This technology I'm building is going to make everything better. One of my posts in Alive was called The Broken Promises. How often did that happen? Okay, how often did social media connect us, and how often did it make us more lonely? How often did mobile phones make us work less?